Hi, I'm Caroline Mitchell, canine behaviourist at Good Doggy. I talk a lot in my videos about how to solve behaviour problems with our dogs, but today I want to talk a little bit about how do we prevent behaviour problems in dogs, and especially when we're expecting a baby to come into the house. Babies bring such big changes to everything. The routine is changed, the environment might change, your behavior might change. So this is really stressful for a lot of dogs. So I want to kind of break this down and see if we can eliminate as much stress as possible, kind of one sense at a time. We can't fully prepare them or minimize all of the stress, but we can make things easier for them so there are less new things to stress them out and to upset them when the new baby comes. The more things we can eliminate, the better they'll cope with these new changes. I'll also talk a little bit about building up resilience, because resilience is really the thing that helps us bounce back from new and stressful things. It's what helps us really cope with change, cope with sudden changes, cope with any kind of curveball that life throws at us. The more resilient we are, the better we're able to cope. The less resilient we are, the more we take these things to heart and the more problematic they can become. So in terms of resilience, we can work on the achievement part of Maslow's pyramid. So we know Maslow's pyramid of needs talks about all of our dogs' needs, from the most primal ones at the bottom, which is the food and their health, water, those kinds of very basic needs. And the further we get to the top of the pyramid, we find things more like creativity and achievement. The achievement need, when we fulfill that regularly and frequently, builds confidence and it builds resilience. So there are a few things that you can do here together, but really it's about building up a positive training relationship together. So you can maybe try and introduce a clicker and start just doing some basic training around clicker training. Clickers have other benefits too, and I've talked about that in other videos, so check that out if you're interested in clickers. Find out all of the other hidden benefits to using a clicker. But resilience building is one big benefit. Lots of whatever you decide, lots of training, lots of hobby building, anything you can do together that is positive, and that positivity comes from you, that reward comes from you. The more they feel like they are successful at things, the more they feel like they're achieving things, the more rewarded they feel in anything. It doesn't have to be related to baby. The more resilience they'll build. If there's any needs in terms of socialization, now is a good time to start addressing those, start build up their social skills so they cope better in their environment outside. So if you have a dog that doesn't get on with other dogs, maybe they're quite reactive, or maybe they're afraid of people in their environment, joggers, territorial, that kind of stuff, now's the time to get a behaviourist in and start working on those specific issues, because that again will also contribute to your resilience. If your dog has any kind of anxieties or hang-ups at all in any area, whether that's related to baby stuff in the house or not, those will all impact on their mental health and their ability to cope when we introduce something new. So the first step is start building on that resilience, do some really lovely positive training for anything, any new tricks, anything you can think of, take a new hobby, and work on any pre-existing behaviour problems. So once we've kind of ticked that box, we've got resilience training is ongoing, lots of nice new training skills being taught and that kind of thing. We can start to focus on what it feels like to bring a baby into the house. So one thing that's going to change is sounds. Your dog might not be used to hearing those kind of urgent, high-pitched baby cries and screams and, you know, the kind of noises that they make. Those kind of exciting noises really do trigger excitement and, in some dogs, anxiety as well. So we need to address these before we bring the baby in, because we don't want the first time your dog to hear the sound of a baby crying is when it's your baby in the middle of the night or whenever that is. So my best suggestion for this is to download a soundtrack of different kinds of baby noises. They'll come in different tones. These are available on the internet. I think even the Dogs Trust has one that's available to download for free. And what you'll do with this recording is you'll play it very, very quietly at first. So it'll barely be noticeable. Your dog will not even realize it's happening, and it's there. And you can just play this over and over and over and over again to him. So if you're heading out for the shops, maybe just pop it on a loop and let it just repeat. As your dog gets used to the sound, then you'll very gradually start to turn the volume up. And it's really important this is done very slowly, because the slower you go, the more likely it is your dog will not notice the change and will continue to just drown out this new but irrelevant noise. Over a period of weeks and months, you're going to continue to tweak the sound more and more and more each day, so that eventually you'll be able to play this really loudly. It will be a very high-pitched noise, but your dog will just not even listen to it. It's a little bit like the effect of living next to motorways or airports or, railway lines. When you first hear these noises loud, you react to them, you respond to them, and you're very aware of them. But over time, when these noises continue to repeat themselves, you'll start to just drown them out. Your brain will treat them as irrelevant and not important, and will stop reacting to them. And that's really what we want your dog to do. And this doesn't just work with baby sounds. You can do this with fireworks sounds, work sounds, like diggers at the side of the road, banging, car sounds, all of that. There is a noise CD or a noise recording now available for most kinds of sounds that a dog could be afraid of. But for you specifically, if you're expecting a baby, look out for the baby cry sounds, and start getting your dog used to those sounds so they become very boring to them. The other thing that you're going to be expecting as your arrival date starts to approach is you're going to start to fill your house up with more stuff. There's going to be prams, and there's going to be cots, and there's going to be baby clothes and toys and all manner of things that you can't even probably imagine if you're in the early stages of your pregnancy. This will get out of control at some point, but this stuff is going to come, and your dog is going to notice that the house is starting to change shape a little bit. Maybe the room that used to be your kind of den has now been transformed into a baby's bedroom. So as you start to make these changes and you start to bring things in, and the important thing is that you allow your dog to investigate all this stuff. It's really safe right now because you don't need any of the stuff for your baby. Your baby is on their way. But for now, your dog can just start to freely explore it all, and allow them to do that. Encourage them, if anything, because we want them to get all of the sniffs. We want them to get used to all the stuff. Again, we really want to normalize this and make it feel quite boring. When this stuff arrives at the same time as your baby, your dog is interested in all of it, and you can be quite panicky and worried sometimes about the kind of attention your dog might give it. But when you're not expecting the baby for a while, this is a good time to let them really get to know all of the things that are going to be showing up. And hopefully over the last few months of your pregnancy, you'll be adding in more and more and more stuff. So this will be a gradual process, every week or so. Something new will arrive and your dog will start to investigate and explore. If you make this a really positive experience and encourage them to use their nose and let them get really up close to everything, then this can also contribute a bit to their resilience, because exploring new things is a really good way to build up confidence and resilience. So this is a really good exercise, so don't shy away from this. Let them really explore all of the new spaces and all of the new stuff before baby needs them. When your baby does finally arrive, you'll have lots of new things happening. Your routines are going to change. You might end up with new visitors coming. You might want to time out where you can create some space for your baby. Perhaps you'll want to feed your baby and not have your dog on the sofa with you, but they're maybe already used to being on the sofa. So plenty of change is expected in terms of their routine. So teaching them a few new tricks before the baby comes that will help you with this is a good idea. So one thing you can start working on is a doorbell routine, which is quite calming. Your dog will be wanting to be part of all of the excitement, all the people coming and going. But if you have space at your front door, you can teach them at this early stage to sit almost as far away from the door as you can get, where they can actually still see it. I have a video about how to do a doorbell routine, so there's lots more detail in that, so check that out. But essentially what we're aiming for is we're aiming for a dog that can sit calmly while you go to the door, open it and let people in. That might even feel impossible for some people in the very early stages. So break that down into little steps. So we could start desensitizing them to the sound of the doorbell. So playing that regularly throughout the day, and trying to help them disassociate it with people coming in. So if you ring the doorbell, if you've got a Ring doorbell, this is ideal. But if you haven't, get one that you can take off and carry around with you. So you can trigger your doorbell wherever you are in the house. But ring it at different times. So when you're putting stuff in the dishwasher, when you're in the bathroom, when you're doing laundry, anything like that, anytime you're moving, if you're sitting watching TV, so your dog can't pinpoint exactly what the cause of the doorbell is, and eventually starts to realize that actually it's not just about people coming in through the front door. That'll help to desensitize them to the doorbell itself. In the meantime, you can be teaching them to do a sit stay in the place where you'll want them to stay. You'll want them to be able to do a sit stay for about 20 seconds, and you'll want them to be able to do it for long enough for you to walk to the front door, open it, shut it, and then come back to them. So in the very early stages, you'll be doing this without any visitors and without the doorbell. And as they get better and better at this, you'll be able to get them to sit for longer and longer and longer. And eventually you can start reintroducing the visitors and the doorbell noise back in as well and make it into a full-size routine. But breaking that down into lots of little steps and building up is the key to that. And hopefully if you've started to plan far enough in advance, you've got loads of time to teach this, so you don't have to feel like you're under pressure to rush it. But this is something you could put on your to-do list. Another really good command to teach them would be a place command. This is a great command to teach them because it helps you direct them to a space. So it's not about stopping them being with you maybe. So perhaps you want to feed your baby or you want to change them on the sofa and you don't want them to be a part of that. You can use your place command to send them off and they will go to their place and wait there. So this is not a negative experience. We're not telling them no all the time, you can't be here. We're actually giving them a positive command, something they can follow and something they can be rewarded for as well. And this is useful in all different situations. So it doesn't have to be just when you're feeding baby or changing baby. You could be playing with your baby, or maybe you've got lots of people in and you need your dog just to go somewhere and be calm. So teaching the place command is something that you could put on your list as well. Also very useful if you decide to go out for cafes and restaurants and things like that, because you can get them to go to their place while you're there. And your place would be a mat or something like that, which you can move around. So it's useful even if you go to other people's houses. And you also need to have that same sort of control. You need to give your dog something positive to go and do. You can send them to their place, and the mat at least will be consistent. And wherever you put that, they'll go to it because that's what you've taught them to do. We can also teach them the opposite, if you like, of a place command. So as baby starts to move and things like that, you'll probably end up with some kind of play mat that'll go on your floor. And these are great. Babies lie on these on their backs and they have their arms and legs in the air. They're kicking at things, looking at things, and they're really fun and really stimulating for baby. So now's a good time to get that set up into your front room or wherever you might likely to have it. And we're going to teach our dog that they're not allowed to go on that mat. So a bit like the opposite of the place. Anytime they try to go on it, we're going to discourage that. We're going to move them off their mat. If you're using clicker training, you can use your clicker to help them learn this new command. But in any case, as long as they're getting plenty of reward for not being on it and you're discouraging them in a nice way to keep them off of that mat, then over the next few months, they will start to learn that that is not a place that they're supposed to go. You can also get some practice toys from charity shops and things like that. These are not obviously toys that you're going to eventually give to your baby, but you could have some dummy toys that you can have about the place. So your dog gets used to learning which toys are theirs and which toys are babies as well. So you'll thank yourself for doing this later on because you'll end up with all kinds of toys everywhere. So it's important your dog knows which ones they're allowed to play with and which they should avoid. And when this starts to come up later on, always make sure you've got plenty of toys available for your dog so that they have lots of good choices. There's no good teaching them that they can only play with their own toys, and then as time goes by, their stocks dwindle down and the only toys left to play with are the baby's toys, because then they will start to look for the baby's toys instead of their own if there aren't any. So put that on your to-do list as well. Toys for baby, extra toys for dog. You might be considering perhaps even putting up some stair gates. You might want to reintroduce a crate to your dog, or if you haven't introduced a crate in the past, maybe that's something you're thinking about doing as well. This is now a good time to start doing all of that. Something else we'll be wanting to teach them at this stage as well is to walk calmly and gently beside wheels. So as soon as you get your pram in the house, get it assembled and get your dog used to walking on his lead, on a loose lead beside the pram. So one of the number one problems I get asked to fix whenever I come out and help people is getting their dog to walk on a loose lead while they're out with their pram, because they want to go out for walks with the dog and the baby together. And if the dog's pulling and not walking nicely beside the pram, then that can be quite a frightening experience for a new mum. So that's something that we can be working on right now. And if your dog won't walk on a loose lead on a normal day, then also put that on your list of things to do, as well as teaching them a really good recall. I think every dog should have a good recall, but in particular, your time is now going to be limited whenever you are out perhaps walking, and you want to be able to make the most of your walks. Again, building up that resilience, allowing your dog to explore and socialize, that's all part of that resilience process, and they can't do that very well when they're on leads. Even very long lines are quite restrictive. So teaching them a very reliable recall now will pay dividends when your baby comes and you're looking for that extra kind of fun on your walks. And on routine, now's the time to start thinking about how your day might look when your baby's arrived. There will be times of the day when you can't interact with your dog because you'll be doing things with your baby. There'll be times when you're tired, maybe you'll want naps in the afternoon on the sofa. So start to kind of think about how your day might feel and how your day might look and what you're going to expect your dog to be doing during these times. So we've introduced a few commands already that will be useful. But now is not the time when you go on maternity leave to suddenly go, I've got loads of time for my dog. We don't want them to get used to having you all to themselves for the next week or so, and then all of a sudden this baby comes along and then that just stops. So now's a really good time to try and make yourself feel quite boring to your dog. Maybe have specific times when you'll be able to play with them, or specific cues that they can understand means playtime with them, but also allowing them to kind of get used to the fact that they won't always be able to have you on demand whenever they want. You'll be thinking about your house as well. You're going to have a baby's room set up. Will they be allowed in there? Are they allowed on your bed now at night time to sleep? Is that going to change? So plenty to think about in terms of your routine, and before you go on maternity, that's the time to have decided all this stuff so that you can now start to just ease them into this new routine. So your baby's also going to bring with them lots of new and interesting smells that your dog has not smelt before. We know that smell is their primary sense, so this is the one they depend on the most to teach them about their environment. They use their sense of smell to learn about everything. So you've already let them smell all of the baby's stuff. When the baby arrives, they really want to smell baby and get to know baby. So this is hard to prepare for in advance, unless you know somebody who's had a baby recently that might have some clothes or blankets that they haven't washed that you could borrow for a day or two and let them get used to those smells. Maybe you know people that have babies and you've been able to introduce them to your dog, in which case your dog will already be familiar with these smells to a degree. But again, when your baby does finally come, we want to allow them to investigate as much as possible and as much as you feel comfortable with. Your dog's mostly just going to be interested in the nappy area, because that is the area where he's going to learn the most about your new baby. So this makes things easy for you, because when you come to introduce your baby to your dog, you can turn your baby to face you and you can really cuddle them in and just expose them to that kind of nappy area. So you'll have your hand around their bum and another one behind their head to kind of support them. And your dog will be able to just sniff the bits that they really want to. What they really want to do is to investigate and sniff and introduce themselves to your baby. Hopefully they'll not be too excited and they'll not be too anxious. And if they are, you can just have a lead on them and just take them out, give them a chance to calm down before you try again. But this could be a bit of a work in progress, but it's hardest to work on in advance. This is something you might have to do on the day when you finally do bring your baby home. So hopefully that's given you loads and loads of stuff to think about as your baby starts to arrive. The real takeaway here is just to plan ahead, is to think about the kind of things that might stress your dog out and eliminate as many as possible. You'll not be able to eliminate everything, but if you can do your best to eliminate most things, then by the time your baby does arrive, it's really only one thing that your dog has got to learn to accept. If you bring a baby home for the first time and you haven't done any work, they have to get used to all of this stuff on the same day. So it's so overwhelming for them to have to go new smells, new sounds, new routine, new stuff. It's too much for most dogs to cope with on at one time. So take the next few weeks and months, if you have them, hopefully, to start to introduce these new routines and think about what things might look like. Maybe speak to other mothers as well and ask them how their routines have changed since they've had babies and things, so that you can start to kind of put yourself in those positions and imagine what your dog might be needed to do at those times. But really good luck with your new baby, and hopefully it'll go very, very well. I'll speak to you soon. Take care for now. Bye bye.